So, want to welcome everybody. Good afternoon or morning if you're joining us from the West Coast. Welcome to Build Wealth Without Worry: Smart Money Moves for a Seven-Figure Retirement. So, my name is Bernie DeSantis. I'm the owner and CEO of Insignia Training Partners, where we help businesses to create training and virtual events that don't suck. So, I, along with my co-producer Joey Streets, we have the privilege of producing today's event. But before we dive into the content, let me introduce you to the man of the hour, and that is my friend, John Browning. Now, I've known John for a bit, and I can tell you that he's not your typical financial advisor. In fact, in his words, he's on a mission to cure the world of average financial advice. The kind that hasn't changed in 30 years, even though the market and frankly, the entire world has changed dramatically in that time. John's approach is different. After nearly 3 decades on Wall Street and at one point managing over 157 billion, yes, with a B, in assets, he saw firsthand how ineffectual and outdated the standard advice and service that most of us receive from financial advisors has become. And he decided that it was time for a change. So John escaped Wall Street. He founded Guardian Rock Wealth, and now he's using that wealth of experience, pun intended, to empower everyday people like you and me with clear, practical, not so standard financial guidance. Personally, John is a proud father of 6, grandfather of 4, and just recently a new grandfather of the 4th, and somehow also finds time to deliver a daily 10-minute market update. You can catch that on Substack or social media. And he's also been running the Building Your Life with John Browning podcast for 4 years. You can catch that wherever you catch your podcasts. So today's session is all about rethinking your approach to money, breaking free from outdated strategies, and ultimately helping you to build wealth intentionally and with confidence. So get ready to learn from someone who's been in the trenches, thinks outside the box, and is truly passionate about making wealth management accessible to everybody. So John, I'll turn it over to you to debrief the poll and lay some knowledge on us, my friend.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for calling. If you are on this call, automatically, I know a couple things about you. Number one, you are a successful professional. You're very busy. Hence, we will get right down to business, and I will teach as much as I can. But the other thing that I know that you know is because you're very good at what you do, you probably understand that if you tried to teach me everything that you knew in 45 minutes or so, that would probably be impossible. So I'm not going to be able to teach you everything that I know over the next 45 minutes, but maybe I can help you understand that there are more things out there than maybe you know about. There are more tools that you can use to help you build your best life, not just in the future in retirement, but also right now. So let's take a look here at what you guys put down for the poll. Looks like, can you withdraw a 401k before age 59 and a half without penalty? And the answer to that, I love the ones that are unsure. The answer to that is yes, you actually can under certain circumstances. And we're going to briefly touch on those, but that's one that gets more into a 301 type of, instead of a 101 type of course, but I'll mention how to do that. Should you withdraw Social Security at age 65? We had some people say yes, nobody said no, and it depends. It depends is really the right answer on that because it can vary depending on your situation. And then when I turn age 65, I have to use Medicare, and it's always the cheaper option. The answer to that is actually false. You do not have to use Medicare in certain circumstances, and it is certainly not always the cheaper option. And we're going to just touch on that a little bit later on today as well. And then there are ways to legally never pay taxes on some of the money that you earn ever. And many of you got that one right. That is actually true. There are 3 ways that I know of right off the top of my head where you would never pay taxes on that income. Is anybody interested in learning how to not pay taxes on that? All right.
I think everybody who's not on camera is also raising their hand, John.
Is also raising their hands. Okay. All right. All right. Let's see. Can you see the presentation right now?
Yes.
It
Yep.
is up.
Good to go.
Very good. So first of all, the book, Build a Life, Not a Portfolio. I just want you guys to know that this is really a book for all ages. As you can see here, I'm not above using my grandchildren shamelessly in what I do. You can see they're very much enjoying the book. No matter what age, you really enjoy the Build a Life, Not a Portfolio. They enjoyed it so much they got some popcorn and broke it out. No, but I hope you do take advantage of the book Build a Life, Not a Portfolio. It really is a book for everyone, and it comes out of my personal experience on Wall Street, and frankly, not building a life, but really focusing more on building that portfolio and career, especially early on in my Wall Street career. I wish someone had grabbed me and taught me a little bit about what I'm going to speak to today, because I chased that a little bit too long. So our objectives for today is number one, and this is where I believe we should all start, is what does it really mean to build your best life? And I know we've kind of thought about that maybe every once in a while. We considered it, but have we really sat down and talked about it? Have we talked about it with somebody else, an independent third party, possibly? And this is not your mother, your brother, your sister, your cousin. This is somebody who won't let you off the hook when you give a glib answer off the cuff. This is somebody who will ask you that all-powerful 3-letter question: why? That question of why. You become like a 2-year-old. So I become like your 2-year-old when we start talking about building your best life. And I'll ask you, why is it that you think that thing or that event or what you want to do is really your best life? And I'll challenge you on that. And that's where to start. Then we're going to talk about the greatest trick I ever played on the American public, and the fact that the government has a lien on your 401k and your Social Security check. How many people were aware that there was actually a lien on your 401k right now? Anybody? Wave your hands. That's when you really think about that, that's a little disturbing, right? Instead of having that $1 million 401k that you thought you had, you have that $1 million 401k less what the government is going to take from you. All right, what causes most people to run out of money during retirement? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the big shift in what the United States government did to the rest of us, so the general public, back in 1978. And you might find that what you thought you knew, maybe you didn't actually know. And we're going to go through some examples. We're going to hear some stories about how thinking you know something can cause some serious problems. I don't know if there's anybody here that might be in the trades, but I know a lot of people in the trades. I like to work with blue-collar workers. I think they're, in general, kind of fun to work with. And they will tell me all kinds of stories that they have of fixing the do-it-yourselfer projects, and how it tends to be much more difficult to fix something after somebody tried to do something that they thought that they could do on their own. And I don't know if you're like me, but I've had a few examples where I was like, well, I think I can put in that sink. I think I can repair that. And then after a full day of running back and forth to the hardware store, I really wished I would have just hired a professional. And of course, we're going to answer the question, what do you do about it? So what is one thing, throw it in the chat down there for me, what is one thing that you really want to do more of in retirement? Just throw it in the chat there if you can. And I'm going to quick pull that up just to see what some of you put in here. Okay. Make money in retirement. Very good. Go marlin fishing. Ooh, I like that one. You know, I've never been. I got to do that too. work part-time and travel. Golf. Yep. Travel. I mean, all these things, are some common ones. Spend more time with family. One of the things that I hear often too about the marlin fishing, the golf, and all that is what you begin to find out in retirement is that you can only play so much golf. After round number 1,427, maybe you want to try and do something else. And that's why when we start talking about what is your best life in retirement, we talk about the variety of things that you're going to do. And we talk about, here's another fact that a lot of people don't realize is that during the first several years of retirement, a lot of times people will tell you that your expenses go down. What actually tends to happen is your expenses go up, because what do you do on Saturday? You go shopping, you go run your errands. So what happens when every day is Saturday? You go shopping, you go on trips, you go on, go out to golf, and all that stuff costs money. Your expenses actually tend to go up a little bit in the first several years of retirement. And actually, the number two fear that Americans face today about retirement when they do the polls is that they'll pass away before they can actually enjoy their lives. So what are you most afraid of when it comes to retirement? Throw that in the chat for me. What are you most afraid of? What bothers you most when you think about not going to work every day, having to come up with your own paycheck, getting a heart attack, running out of money? And that running out of money is the number one in the polls. What people are concerned about is running out of money during retirement. Getting sick, not being able to enjoy the years without work, which goes to the idea that we have to remember to live our best lives now, not just prepare, but also build our best lives now. So yes. And here's the thing, right? If you follow the rules that we have all been taught, things have changed. And we're going to talk about this a little bit. Things have changed since our parents retired significantly. If you follow the same rules that we have generally been taught, we'll likely run out of money in retirement. If we follow those same rules, that if you look up on YouTube, how do I make enough money to retire, and that you're going to find a lot of those old-fashioned, outdated rules, old-fashioned, outdated tools and strategies. And if you follow those rules, you very well may run out of money in retirement. And that's why we're here today, and I'm glad you joined me. Do you know how much money you actually would need to last in your retirement? Have you done the math on that? If you've done the math, do you realize that math may not be able to account for every single risk that's out there? And do you know how cash flow works during retirement? And how important is cash flow if you have capital appreciation in the markets? And how do taxes work during retirement? So here's a quick poll that was done across several thousand people. Between those who started work at 25 and then they're still around at 65. Here's the deal: 63% of this is over across all of America. 63% lived on Social Security. Has anybody, wave your hand, has anybody actually gone out to the SSA.gov and looked at what their Social Security is likely to be when they start to take it? Yep. Couple have. So if you've done that, does it feel like when you look at that number that you would be able to live your best life on what Social Security is likely to provide you? I'm seeing some no's. And if you've ever done that and you've thought about at least what it is like down here in South Florida, how much it's likely to cost you to live, it's just not going to cover it. Now, here's the sobering fact: is 29% of us don't make it to 65. Okay, I don't mean to depress anyone, but if you're not living your best life now, you might miss out on the whole thing. Okay, but there's this interesting mathematical thing that happens, and we know this from the life insurance tables, is that if you do make it to 65, there is a much higher likelihood that you'll make it to age 85 and beyond. Okay, so if you do make it to 65, you're still around. You may have a very long runway, a very long period of time through which you need to make sure you have the money to support your best life. And you need to actually have a best life, so you need to plan for that. What is that to you? 4%, only 4% are financially secure or feel financially secure, and 3% of us will be working, whether that's the Walmart greeter or the McDonald's part-time work or whatever it is. 3% of us will actually still be working, not because we want to, but because we have to. And of course, the 1%, that is the ultra wealthy. And if we have any of those ultra wealthy folks on the call today, please book some time with me because I would like to borrow some money. All right. My favorite movie, or one of my very most favorite movies. Anybody tell me, put in the chat if you know what movie this is from. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you might miss it. You might know what movie that's from. I'm giving away my, there we go, Ferris Bueller. But it's a true statement, right? You find a lot of wisdom in 80s movies, don't we? So our goal today is to empower you. And the idea that we would do that by creating a team around you of experts. And I am not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, I am not an estate planner, but I can put you in touch with a wonderful team of individuals who are experts in their fields. And this is where wealth management differs from financial planning or anything else. It's that you need this team around you, built around you. And when you go to very large firms, they may have people within the firm. What we like to do here at Guardian Rock Wealth is to actually take independents who are extremely good at their job, who have very long experience in the field, put them around you as a team, all communicating together with you at the helm to motivate you and collaborate with you to help you build your best life, because it's not just about the money. So the question is, of course, how do you get there? How do you get to this best life idea? Well, the number one thing is, how many people remember the Personal Paycheck Protection Program back from 2020? Well, the government's not going to do that for you when you get to retirement other than Social Security. And we've already talked about that not being quite enough. So how do you create your own personal paycheck protection program? And if you're going to really enjoy your best life, wouldn't you want it to be also have a play check? I call that the check that over and above everything else, you can just go have fun. Does everybody like to have fun? Put a 1 in the chat if we like to have fun. I'm putting a 1 in the chat for that one because I like to have fun. There we go. Now, we also, this is not the only hurdle that we have to get through. We have to beat inflation. So we can't be so conservative and so afraid of the markets and the tools that we're using that we don't beat inflation. And I do see this on a very, very often when I speak to people who are well into retirement. They get very afraid and they just will not take the risk that they need to beat inflation. And they begin to go down and down and down in terms of their purchasing power. And these days, we're living longer. Does everybody know that we actually have been extending our lifespan here in the United States for quite some time? And like I said, if you make it to 65, the likelihood that you make it to 85 goes up exponentially. So as we get older, what happens? If you're anything like me, things hurt worse when I get up out of bed every morning. As that begins to get even older, I can only imagine that things start to break and we need more health care. We may need long-term care. Long-term care is expensive. And I'll tell you a quick story. It's not a fun story, but it actually happened to us here because we happen to be involved with some of the folks in the community here with on the guardianship side of things. A lady was walking down the middle of a road here we call Okeechobee Road. Police officer stopped, pulled off to the side. She was just in her early 70s, and he said, "Hey, how you doing? Anything we can help with?" And he asked her what year it was, and she was absolutely convinced. Had a great conversation with him about President Carter. 2 days ago, she was living her best life in Boca Raton in a very nice house, and something happened, and she now needs long-term care. And she didn't have her estate plan set up. She didn't have her plan set up. So we were working with the courts and the guardian ad litems, but that's a great way to really understand that if you don't decide now what's going to happen to you, if and when something like this happens, if you don't prepare for that, somebody else is going to decide for you. So deciding not to decide, deciding not to put that estate planning in place is actually a decision to let the state of wherever you are decide what's going to happen to you, what's going to happen to your assets and everything. And then to manage your risks, we need to understand and be prepared for sequence of returns risk. And some of you are already saying, what in the world does that mean? We're going to get to that. And then the number one risk that I find is just the worst one out there is the not right now. Like 3 of the most powerful, damaging words in the English language are put together like that. Procrastination risk, which is not right now. So how do you get there, and what is there? Well, hopefully we've talked a bit and we understand where there is for you, and it's different for everyone. But what do you do when you walk into a mall? Well, if you're like me, you want to know exactly where you're going and you want to know where you are, because you can't get to where you want to go unless you know where you are. So I look for that map and I go straight there. My wife, on the other hand, she wants to know those 2 things, but she also wants to know every single store that she can stop in along the way. So whichever way you like to roll, you need to understand you got to put together that roadmap for you. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, the road to retirement and the road through retirement into our golden years is going to be quite long. And during that road, we'll probably run into some detours. And we're going to need to have a plan on how to do things if and when there is a detour that comes up. And there almost certainly will be a detour at some point. And if you, on a long trip, if you don't have a systematic process for putting this plan together, how well do you think that's going to work out for you? So if you had this gentleman here working on your airplane engine that you were going to fly in, would you want him to have a systematic process for the maintenance on that? I'm guessing yes, you would. So if you are going to go on an extremely long journey of retirement, would you want to have a systematic process? And do you have a systematic process? So what is our next poll here? So yeah, I just wanted to learn a little bit more about you guys. Quick, if you could put in there, do you have any of these things? A 401k, a pension, traditional IRA, a Roth, an annuity, or if you have both or 2 of these, put that in as well. Annuities. Nobody has an annuity. Okay. And all right, everybody had a chance to put it in there. Looks like we're getting close. Okay, I'm going to end that, share the results so you guys can see them as well. I'm really shocked no one has an annuity. Has anybody ever heard, put it in the chat, if you put a yes in the chat, if you have heard like an annuity is an evil, horrible, terrible, very bad thing. Put a yes in there if that's okay. We got one that says annuities are horrible. Nobody else has though. Okay, well, scary. Annuities are scary. Okay. This is good information for me. Okay. All right. Well, here's the deal about annuities. Let me just address that real quick. And I wasn't planning on doing this, but when I saw nobody had one at this point, it made me think that this might be something that we should address, because what an annuity has several features. Now, you very much, in my opinion, most people, and again, this is not investment advice. Nothing that I'm saying here is investment advice for you. This is just information for you to use. annuities can be an extremely powerful tool for your retirement. They have several advantages to them. Number one being that I can actually say this about an annuity, it will guarantee, and I can't normally say that word guarantee, but it will guarantee a certain amount that this annuity will pay you for the rest of your life. And that's even if the amount of money that you put into the annuity ran out. And I do have clients that have invested in an annuity. They've been withdrawing on that, and they are well past what they put in there. So just keep that in mind, and it can also take care of your long-term care insurance now. So while annuities did kind of get a bad name for a while because some of them, frankly, were not good products, there are ways to use an annuity as a portion of your portfolio that can be extremely, extremely effective and can reduce your risk throughout retirement. So it's something not to just cut it off at the knees and think, oh, I would never do that because somebody on TV or something said that it was a bad thing. All right, so that was a rabbit trail. Sorry about that. But here's the next question then. Since we've got that poll out of the way and I kind of know where you guys are, have you ever wondered, how did I get here? Ever been in the middle of the woods and wondered, how in the world did I get here? Or have you ever been in that time in your life when you wondered, how in the world did I end up here in this part in my career or whatever? Well, that can happen if you just wing it. Okay, so I have 3 pilots that are clients of mine, and I've spoken to a couple of them about this just to make sure I was right. But if you're off 1 degree and you take 5 steps or so, you're going to miss the mark by about an inch. But if you go on a long trip, like around the globe, and you're off by 1 degree, you're going to be off by 400 miles. That would be, in some cases, an entirely different state. That may not be where you want to be in your retirement. Once you've defined your best life, to miss it by 400 miles could be a problem. And getting to and getting through retirement is a long journey. So back in the old days, we had the pension, right? How many people remember the pension? Put a yes if you remember even what a pension was. And I saw 1 or 2 of you had a pension. They rarely will you find them now. You find them in municipalities. You'll find them in certain areas of the government and a few other places. Teachers might have them, but they're typically not like they used to be. They used to basically just take care of you for the rest of your life. And guess what pensions were and are? They're annuities. So are annuities evil? We kind of like the pensions, I think. So they can function exactly the same way. It's just that you have to put them in place now. So for decades, you'd work for the same company. That rarely happens anymore. And then retirees got this great annuity for the rest of their life. My father has been retired and living on his pension for way longer than he ever worked and has collected way more in benefits than he ever did while he was working. So he doesn't have any concept of what I do, which is kind of fun for me because he just has no idea. But there was this shift in responsibility, and this is that great trick that was played on the American public. When things shifted from the pension plan into this idea of the 401k, do they create a taxable event? So annuities get a little bit more complicated than that, but I saw that in the chat. We can cover that. Let's definitely schedule a call and I can go through all of the way that they are taxed because taxes are extremely important. We're going to talk about taxes as well. But there was this shift in responsibility from the employer who took all that on. And remember, when they were running pension funds, they had teams of people that's all they did all day long. They were professionals. So you do what you do all day long. And my guess is if you're on this call, you're pretty good at it because you do it all day long. You've got great experience. That's what these pension fund managers did. And even then, some of those pensions went bankrupt. I'm sure we all remember when the Detroit pension fund went bankrupt. Many of the ones in Chicago have gone bankrupt. There have been many hospital pension funds that have gone bankrupt. And this is with people who did it professionally. So then now they've shifted things from a defined benefit where knew exactly what you're going to get to you now as the individual who's really good at what you do becomes now responsible for your wealth management. And that was the great shift. And then it was the allure, right? The wow, you don't have to pay taxes on this, which is great. I think 401k plans are wonderful, and we've all been taught max out your 401k plan. But is that the right answer for you? And in many cases, it's actually, I would argue, not the right thing to max out your 401k. Now, maybe I help put together 401k plans and I help manage them for small and mid-sized businesses. So I'm not against 401k plans. They're wonderful. But this idea of deferred taxes may not be what it used to be. See, back in 1978, when this actually happened, when this bill went through that allowed for the 401k, we were kind of sold on this idea of a lower tax rates in the future, which made perfect sense then because taxes were up around 70%. You think it's bad now at around 30 to 37%. Well, 70% is a whole lot worse, right? And that's what you get if you're over in Europe as well. But here's where you get that idea that there is a lien on your 401k because the government is going to charge you taxes as you come out. And what has happened over the past 30 years is you've been accumulating those funds and hopefully they've been invested and they've been growing in the stock market or the bond market. It's gotten bigger. And taxes are calculated on what? A percentage of those assets, which are now bigger. So you're actually potentially paying more taxes. And if you don't pay those taxes, the government is going to come in and take them from you. So they have a lien against your 401k. So just like when you got your first paycheck, who remembers that? You got your first paycheck and you thought you're going to get $1,000 that week, or that was a little bit more than I got when I started, but thought, well, it's supposed to be $1,000. And wait, what are all these 3-letter people that are taking my money? FICA, Social Security, Medicare. Well, guess what? That keeps going in retirement, except you have to pay that out of your 401k. So that $1 million 401k might be a $700,000 401k. On top of that, to the question that I got here in the chat, is this a taxable event? When are things taxed? Just as important as how much we can make you through wealth management and investing your funds in a prudent way, the game of taxes continues to change. Over the past 40 years, there have been dozens of tax law changes, and every 10 years, we get a major overhaul of the tax system. Trying to keep up with it all is a job for a CPA, not me. This is why I partner with really smart CPAs. And I really don't like it very much. I know just enough to ask the right questions on behalf of my clients to make sure the CPA is doing a great job on their side. And this idea that taxes will be lower in the future might be a bigger gamble than we thought. Now, I don't know if any of you were aware of this, but a gentleman by the name of Ronald Reagan limited himself back in the 1940s to only 2 movies per year. Now, he was a famous actor. He could have done a lot more than that, but why bother? Because his tax rate as he got up to $200,000 reached 95%. So he limited himself to only 2 movies per year. And you can see there that the tax rates actually did get into that 80% rate. And then you add on California where he was. So we all need to take a minute now, relax, watch the cute puppies, because we're going to get into some math. All right. All right. And we're going to get into some decisions. Actually, the first one is a decision. And this is like, if you choose not to make a decision, that's a decision. You could do nothing. Keep deferring, pay unknown taxes later on down the road, may be the right decision. You could pay taxes right now. You could just take all of this 401k money, IRA money, roll it into what we call the Roth IRA, and pay the taxes right now, all at once. Believe it or not, there might be an argument for that for some people. Or number 3, which might be way better, the idea of tax efficient planning options. And there are lots of them. A few are listed here. Contribute to that Roth, roll into a Roth, tactically control your taxable income, which is tough to do if you're getting a paycheck, but potentially possible. Use an index universal life product to create tax-free income during retirement, tax-free income for your heirs, certain types of mortgages. It's amazing to me that after all of this time, and we've gotten all of this innovation with computers, robotics, the internet, all this stuff I've seen in my lifetime, the fact that we carry around a supercomputer in our pockets, almost every one of us, in the form of a phone, and yet we're still stuck with the same wealth management strategies and products that we had 30 years ago, and we're still following some of that same advice. And then there's tax code section T72. We're not going to get into that today. We don't have the time, but that allows you to withdraw from your 401k prior to 59 and a half, but you have to follow the rules. And there are reasons that you might want to do that to get it into potentially a Roth IRA or something similar. Whew, that was tough. All right, everybody calm down. We're going to watch the cute baby animals before we go into the next hard thing. Okay, here we go. Math time. All right, we're going to run through this really quick. Say you have $1 million in your 401k. We're going to see how this Roth rollover actually works in real life. You start with $1 million, and Bob over here on the one side, he said, I'm going to roll it all into Roth this year. I'm going to pay $320,000 in taxes. Whereas Bill on the other side says, you're nuts. There's no way I'm going to pay that amount of taxes. You're paying taxes at the top tax bracket. No way that's going to work out for you. So they go along, and eventually they retire. They're both withdrawing 4% per year, and we made a big assumption here that we were just going to make 8% per year just to make everything even. And Bill saying, you're nuts. See, look, I'm making more money drawing out 4% on a larger amount every single year. And you're only making, what, 60,000? I'm making 80,000. Well, okay. Wow, less taxes. Shoot. I guess I'm only making 70,000, but that's still more than you. Then the next year, he's still ahead of the game. And the next year, he's still ahead of the game. And then in year number 4, something really interesting begins to happen. Even though Bill is only getting taxed at 15%, Bob starts to pull away from him. And over time, you'll see that even though he paid all those taxes up front, he ends up ahead of the game, assuming he lives that long and all of that, right? There's a lot of assumptions, a lot of issues with this, but it gives you the mathematical reasoning behind the idea of how important it is to manage your taxes. And if somebody's not talking to you about that and showing you how to do that in the best way, we should chat. So here's the next poll we've got. Get that up here. Is it always a good idea to roll into a Roth IRA? This should be easy after our conversation. We got one coming in here. One says false. Anybody else out there? There we go. We got one true, one false, 2 falses. Okay. And the rest of you are still eating. You're licking off your fingers from the chicken. All right. So the answer is, it is not always a good idea to roll into a Roth IRA. If for no other reason, then there may be a way to avoid taxes altogether. Those 3 ways that I talked about before. So there's 3 ways to never pay taxes. So if you have an IRA, a regular IRA that's not a Roth or a 401k, and you're getting financial advice, help with that, any money that you pay that individual, you never have to pay taxes on it. If you put that money into an index universal life product and you borrow that money later on down the road as it's gained cash value and been invested in the markets, you never have to pay income tax on that, even when you die, because when you die, your heirs get the cash value tax-free. Or an HSA account, if you have access to one, a health savings account you contribute to pre-tax, and when you draw something out of it, it is not taxed either. So those HSA accounts that you've been spending on healthcare when you didn't have to, oh, you're giving that money away. That could grow. It could be invested for say 20 or 30 years. And as you get older, I am guessing that you're not going to have less medical expenses. So those are the three ways. So you had to wait till this far in to get that answer. But how and when you convert does matter for a Roth IRA. There's no income limits. You can be making as much money as you want, not to contribute to a Roth IRA. But if you contribute to a regular IRA, the very next day you can convert it to a Roth. Don't ask me, it doesn't make any sense, but it's the rules. So we take advantage of that on a regular basis here at Guardian Roth Wealth with some of our high net worth clients. Taxes are paid in the year of conversion, so you do have to pay the taxes then, and it may increase your effective tax rates, which is something you have to worry about as you come into Medicare age. Okay, there's no age limit to convert. You can convert if you're 80 years old if you'd like to, and you might want to do that for your heirs, pay their taxes for them. No income taxes due on any of the future earnings from that point forward. So it's TFF, tax-free forever, if it's in a Roth. So there's all kinds of tax reduction strategies. Here are just a few to take a look at. And again, this is something that we can discuss in more detail if you're interested. What I do find is that as we get to the end of this, a lot of you will want to schedule a little bit of time with me. There is absolutely no obligation in doing that. I'm looking just to give you more information on your personal situation. I have opened up my calendar for that, so you'll be able to do that later on. So if you're feeling like, shoot, there's so much more I want to know, schedule 30 minutes with me and we can see how we can get you started or get you headed in the right direction. The question then comes, wow, you've given us a lot of bad information, bad news about how are you supposed to navigate all this? And there's going to be some market storms out there. Well, my contention is, and it comes for 30 plus years of experience, is you can build wealth in any market, but only if you prepare, you're consistent, and you stay disciplined. And those three things are way harder than it was for me to just say them. But if you prepare, you're consistent, and you stay disciplined, you can build wealth in any market. All right. I'm going to relax for just a couple seconds here again. Watch the cute babies, because here we go one more time. We're going to talk about some really not so fun times. Who remembers the dot-com bubble? Does anybody remember that? Anybody old enough, as old as me, and remember that very, very well? It's considered the lost decade. And these companies here that are up on the screen don't exist anymore. And during that time period, no one believed that Enron would not be around anymore, or WorldCom would not be around anymore. And I very much remember sitting on the trading desk when they weren't around anymore. So that goes to the fact that when you're working with your wealth management, you're building your wealth, never get too incredibly excited about any one sector of the market or any one individual company in the market. And I do hear this all the time too on the YouTubers and the folks that are just, they're saying, well, just buy Tesla, just buy whatever stock that they're touting. And that can be extremely dangerous because no matter how much you love something, something can go drastically wrong. So portion control, like you're sitting down at Thanksgiving dinner, and if you're like me, you have trouble with this, you have to watch your portion control and your asset management as well. But if you just stayed disciplined, if you would have stayed consistent, say continuing to invest no matter how painful it was, you would have dollar cost averaged down in price. And now, at this stage in my career, had I done this dollar cost average into some of these stocks in a diversified portfolio, I would be 10, 15, 20 times higher than when I had started. Again, practicing that portion control, discipline, and consistency. Number one things you have to worry about. In the Great Recession, some more of you will remember this, is when your house prices dropped 15 to 20%. but you don't get a statement on your houses, right? You get a statement on your equity, your 401k, and you notice that dropping. You may not have noticed that your house price dropped by 15 to 20%, and unemployment went up over 10%. During this time period, after 18 years at Morgan Stanley, pretty much everyone at a certain level got let go. Guess who was one of those that got let go? And guess when? This is my come to Jesus moment. I was not prepared, like I'm trying to help you guys prepare. It was a shock to my system. I was riding high. I was a senior level executive at 18 years. Nobody had any problems with me. I just happened to get paid too much. So through no fault of your own, that job might not be there tomorrow. Are you ready for that? So it's not just about retirement either. And then as we get into it, we're going to wrap this up here a little bit, but this is a super important thing for people to understand, because I hear very well-known speakers out there saying, well, you can just, the S&P 500 on average has gone up 10% a year. So you can just withdraw 10% in retirement and be absolutely fine. Well, if you've got 20, $30 million, that may be the case. If you're like most of us, I'm going to say on the call today, you've got a little bit less than that, this could be a real problem. So here's an illustration of actual returns of the S&P 500. And we're going to have two people. We're going to have Bad Luck Benny and Fortunate Francis. And yes, I came up with those names on my own. So in 2001, the return on the market was negative 13.04% on the S&P 500. And we said, we're going to just withdraw 5% of that $1 million that we have. We did that every year all the way down to 2023. And based on that sequence of returns, starting off with negative 13 and the next year, negative 23, we end up in 2023 at $259,000. Is anybody worried about running out of money in retirement right now? I would think probably so. Now, if you just took those and reversed them, so you put 2001, put it on the bottom, 2023, put it on the top. That's when you get Fortunate Francis. If she actually did the same thing, withdrew that 5,000, she'd actually have 1.774 million. It's a pretty big difference just because of the sequence of returns. And no matter how many people tell you that they can predict the market, after 34 years of being on Wall Street, working in this industry, I can tell you that I have met exactly 0 people who can predict the market both on the going in and going out consecutively over the decades. It just doesn't happen, and people can debate with me all they would like on that. But even professionals that make it their business to try and do it cannot do it. So rather than this, do you think there might be a better way? Are you hoping? Who's hoping there is a better way to prepare for retirement? Put a 1 in the chat if you're hoping there's a better way for retirement. All right, we got one person at least that's hoping that there's a better way. And the better way is with cash flow, because no matter the weather, cash flow is better. It doesn't mean, again, you practice your portion control. You don't want too much cash flow because then you won't have enough growth. But there are many ways to generate cash flow today that have nothing to do with bonds, that have nothing to do with dividend paying stocks, and even many financial professionals, even many financial advisors do not put you in touch with the tools that you need to be able to do this. Because cash flow fuels both stability and growth. So even if you're young and you're just starting off, it is a very good idea. And I can show you this mathematically on the call if you'd like. Even when you're in growth mode, having that cash flow has some massive benefits to you. And again, there are ways to do it that are not just that. Today, the 10-year was at 4.41%. That's not going to get you anywhere fast unless you have millions and millions of dollars. There are other ways to generate that cash flow. See, retirement isn't about beating the market. It's about not getting beat by bad timing and outdated wealth management practices. So again, what we suggest that you do, whether it's with Guardian Rock Wealth or someone else, the purpose of today was to educate you and let you know there are other things out there in the world that the wealth management sphere has also innovated right along with everything else. Make sure you get a team of professionals surrounding you. Make sure you find someone that you trust that can put this team around you. You're still the quarterback, you're still driving the bus here, but make sure you've got that team and make sure it's comprehensive. Make sure your plan is considering not just your wealth, not just your assets, but how are you protecting those assets? What is your best life and why you believe that? You can't be focused on one thing, but rather on all things at the same time. And you're going to want this written down. You want something that you can refer back to. You can see if it's riding on track or not, and then have regular check-ins, ongoing monitoring to make sure that you make adjustments to the plan as issues develops, because there will always be detours when you're on that long of a trip. So if you would like to schedule a call with me today, and I free up my calendar and I just took all that freed space up off. So it is now open for you guys to schedule a call. And there's going to be a link right there in the chat. And also we're going to have a QR code for you as well. If you want to know more about this idea of preparing for living your best life, not just building your portfolio, I'm happy to spend 30 minutes with you. It's no charge. Here's the great news. You'll get a copy. If you do come on the call, I will not even charge you shipping and handling. Don't you hate that one? You get my free book, but I'll charge you shipping and handling, which oddly resembles about the cost of the book. I will send you a copy of the book absolutely for free. And I'll even sign it, which makes it worth at least 5 cents more. And this is what we'll go through. We're going to start with your why. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation, maybe not a full-fledged one because we only have 30 minutes at that point. But I want to get you thinking about your true why behind the what that you believe you want to have now and in the future. Then we're going to see if some of the things that we have and some of the things that we do at Guardian Rock Wealth would work for you or not. Or maybe I need to refer you to somebody else who would be much better suited for you. Then we'll set up a process. We'll make some specific suggestions, probably right there on the call. We'll get started. We'll point you in the right direction, and you haven't paid us anything at that point. We'll define what the expectations would be, and we'll set some specific goals. And then we'll decide if it really works for us to work together or if it would be better for you to work on your own or with somebody else. That's it for today. I think we are right at our time. Again, if you'd like to send me some questions, I'm considering taking Social Security now. Any advice? So we look at your age, we look at whether or not you're married or not, and we look at your spouse's Social Security as well. And we would also look at your health. Your health is very important when deciding when to take Social Security. Arguably, Social Security will go up if you delay. However, if you are okay taking some volatility risk, you can generally, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, and in my experience, you can do better than the rate that they are going to pay you by taking it now. But again, it's very individual. So should definitely just throw some time on my calendar. We'll talk through it and what it means actually for you, because it's really individual. All right. Anybody else? I really appreciate your time. A lot of you stuck around to the end, so hopefully you learned something. I would love to know if this was beneficial, if you maybe learned something that you didn't know before. If you did, throw something in the chat and say, yes, I did learn something. That would make me feel so much better if you learned something from the last hour or so. But other than that, schedule some time on my calendar. Again, I'll send you not only the book, but I'll also send you a bunch of other resources that are also absolutely free of charge. Oh, thanks, Robin. All right. Sounds good.
Well, if we don't have any additional questions, then, John, I guess we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today and share in your knowledge